Good morning, guys. I just wanted to give you guys a brief intro to this episode. I was asked by Dr. Kaprea Johnson, the Associate Professor of Counseling and Education, who teaches mental health counselors at the Virginia Commonwealth University, to speak with her on a panel with 3 other amazing women about alternative career paths in the mental health industry. So check us out and see what we have to say to these students who are looking to go into counseling and mental health. We're just going to give them some different tips about our career paths and what we learned along the way and when we made our transitions to go in the non-traditional way of mental health and counseling and psychology.
Commonwealth University, as well as several other degrees and a certification as a rehabilitation counselor. So I work with Dr. Webb, and she's amazing. So thank you so much, Dr. Webb, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay. Our next person is Miss Patrice Lee. Ms. Patrice Lee is a procurement analyst with the U.S. Agency for International Development, for USAID. She has a Master's of Education in Counseling Psychology and a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology from Hampton University. So we both attended the same master's program in counseling psychology with our emphasis in counseling. So Ms. Lee will definitely get into some more of her background as we start the presentation. So thank you so much for joining us. All right, Dr. White is the owner of Dr. White Therapy Group and an owner of a spa, as well as with other jobs. Hopefully she'll get into some of that as we get through this session. Dr. White has a PhD in counselor education and supervision from Mercer University. She's also a VCU alum in psychology. So she has credentials. She's a licensed professional counselor, also approved clinical supervisor, national certified counselor. So I'll let her explain some of her other credentials and thoughts around career as we jump into the panel. All right, Miss Shantoya and me. She's the celebrity wardrobe stylist and image consultant. That is her website there. She is also has a podcast, A Pursuit to Happiness, which is available on Apple Music, Spotify, and many more outlets. She touches on a lot of things related to mental health and coaching and life coaching, and so I thought that she would be a really special person to include on the panel. So I'm happy that if she's able to join us. I know that some things were coming up, so hopefully she'll be able to jump in as we get started.
I'm here.
So let's jump right into the career story.
Sorry, one correction. Patrice went to Howard, not Hampton, which is a huge difference.
Oh my goodness, I didn't see that on
I'm from Hampton.
I said, oh no, that's the fake agent.
Oh no.
Please correct that, Dana. Please.
I'm so sorry. I grew up 10 minutes from Hampton University, so I saw HU and did that. I'm so
You're
sorry.
a little biased.
I was. Everyone, she went to Howard.
All right. Kaprea, you didn't even see it. You were like, oh, we went to the same master's program. I'm like, not at Hampton.
We definitely went to Howard University, the Howard University, absolutely. Oh yes, and Shantoya is here. I'm so excited. So excellent. We're getting to hear everyone's kind of their career story, and so I would just jump right in and let them get started. I think the first person we had up was Dr. Webb. Dr. Webb, if you could just share with us and your responses to these prompts, that would be awesome. And Shantoya, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, are you able to see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, come on. Yep. And it's Shatanya.
Yes. Awesome. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to get started. And so I was just giving brief introductions of everyone and then hoping that everyone jumps right into talking about their career story.
No problem.
Awesome. All right.
So I'll start with, I guess, the path that got me into the master's program in rehab counseling, because I think that's really, for me, where I feel like my professional life started to take off. So I was working at VCU in another department as an administrative assistant to the chair of that department, and got to know some of the programs in our, at the time it was the College of Allied Health Professions, and now it's the College of Health Professions. I got to know some of the people in those programs and became familiar with the programs and got very interested in the master's in rehabilitation counseling. I have a history of people in my family who had significant disabilities, and it felt like a career path to me that could make a very practical impact in a positive way on the lives of other people. And so I jumped into that program and was able to go part-time while I was still working full-time. I'm sure a lot of you know that life. It's very crazy, very, very busy. But I graduated and had to leave VCU to start working professionally as a rehab counselor. And the first job that I took was as a job coach. So I was working for an agency that was contracting with our state agency, the Department of Rehab Services, to work directly with people with disabilities, to help them find employment, and then to help them keep those jobs once they found them. And so through my work as a job coach, I got to know more about the state agency and became more interested in going back to state employment. I had been a state employee for 10 years and quite frankly wanted to stay in the retirement system for as long as I could. And so an opportunity came, I applied, and I got a position as a vocational rehab counselor with the state agency. And in that role, I had responsibility for a transition caseload, so I was working with high school students with disabilities to help them decide what was next for them vocationally, whether that was college or going straight on to a career. While I was working for Department of Rehab Services, I absolutely loved doing the one-on-one work with the people that I was working with, both young adults and older adults eventually as well in my caseload. But I was very, very frustrated by the system that had been set up that seemed to put barriers up at every turn. And so every time we would get so far with a client, there would either be a policy issue or a practice issue that would prevent that person from doing what I know they could do. And it became very frustrating to me, and I spent a lot of time debating with my supervisors and other leadership at the agency about, there are policies that are in place that are actually preventing us from doing what we're being asked to do and what's really in the best interest of the clients. And it came to a point for me where I started to realize as my professional identity was developing that while I loved the one-on-one work, I was really interested in how systems are put together either to advance an agency's priorities or to prevent people from actually achieving success. And so I started to think about career change. I really hated to give up the one-on-one work, but I wanted to be more involved in system change work. An opportunity came up for me to apply for a job back at VCU on our health sciences campus doing disability services work with our health sciences students. And I decided to make the move back to VCU. This had been a good place for me as I was developing my career. And so I decided that it was time for me to make a move. So I applied for a job as an assistant director where I felt like I'd have a little bit more influence on policy and practice than just doing the one-on-one work. And so I got that job, came back to VCU in about 2010, so I've been back right at 10 years this past June. And from then on, it's just been a series of promotions and advancement that have gotten me to a place where I feel like I'm finally in a place where I'm able to do work that can affect change for the system, for our students, to make sure that they have a good experience while they're here at VCU, not just students with disabilities, but all of our health sciences students. And so I feel like I'm at a place in my career now where I want to be and where I want to stay. And so the piece of advice that I would give to you as you're thinking about going out beyond your degree in counseling is to think about not so much what you want to be doing, but who you want to be professionally, and then think about what skill sets you've acquired along the way that are going to propel you forward in that. because I think too often we think in a very linear direction. I thought I was going to be a vocational counselor, and I thought that was what my training was preparing me for, and that's true, but my training also prepared me for a lot more than that. So there are a lot of transferable skills that have moved me in the direction that I wanted to go once I was able to articulate that. I think I needed to work in the field for a few years to really get a sense of what it was like and what the issues were, so that I can understand and begin to have a positive impact. What's on the horizon for me? I'm at this point in my career where I'm 52. I love my job. I love what I'm doing. I'm not necessarily looking for the next career advancement bump. I'm really happy where I am. And so the horizon for me just looks like continuing to address issues of system change that need to happen in the curriculum and working with our faculty to develop those skills. So I think that's where I am. I hope I didn't go over time.
No, that was perfect, and thank you so much. I think one of the things that stood out for me was the idea of the transferable skills.
Yes.
Right? Like being able to highlight and hone in on our transferable skills and use that to apply it to any other position that we want.
Yeah, because counseling skills are invaluable in just about every area of my life, but particularly career-wise.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. Well, who would like to go next?
I'll go next. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
I can hear
perfect.
you.
Apologies in advance if you hear like some squeaking in the background. I bought my dog a new toy and he's having a ball with it. So I keep looking down and moving like, be quiet. But so hi again, my name is Patrice Lee. I am a dual Howard alum. I've received my bachelor's in psychology from Howard many years ago. And also my master's in counseling psychology from Howard. I'm one of those people, I thought, growing up, I wanted to be a therapist. I knew what I wanted to be, when I grow up. And so I knew that, as Dr. Lisa mentioned, I wanted to make sure that my skill set was transferable, but I did not think that I was going to venture out, for lack of a better word. So I got my master's and I said, okay, I know I have to be licensed. I know I want to be a therapist, but I had no idea I was going to venture out and not still be in the same field. So after becoming a therapist, I was a therapist for 1.5 years, and then I actually went back and worked at Howard for 3 years as an academic counselor, and that was my dream job. I loved all of my students. I loved helping them and making sure they matriculate, from becoming an undergraduate student to a graduate student or any type of job or career path that they had questions in. So I thought that was my forever place. I said, I'm going to stay there forever. I'm going to retire here at Howard. And so, I was living at home with my parents. I was really young, and I said, I need more. I could do this job with my eyes closed. Where's the challenge? Right. Not putting it all on money, but where's the monetary bump that I need, And so I wasn't getting that. I spoke with my director, and a lovely woman. She said, I can see you becoming the director of this department. And I said, okay, when? 1 year, 2 years? She was like, maybe 11 or 12 years.
Wow.
And I said, 11 or 12 years? Not telling my age, but I was like, I'll be in my 30s. I don't want to be here 11 to 12 years making the same amount and just being an academic counselor. Mm-hmm. Not saying that, it wasn't fulfilling for St. Just, but I wanted more of a challenge. And so one of my uncles, actually, he works for USAID, where I currently work. And, we would always have these kind of check-ins about my finances. And I've always been really good at managing money. And so he said, what's next for you? And I said, well, eventually I want to pay off these student loans,
right,
and I want to buy a home, and I want to get married and have children.
Exactly.
And so he said, well, can you do that where you are right now? I said, well, in 11 or 12 years, I can do it. And so he said, okay, Patrice, is that realistic? And so he said, we have positions opening up all the time in USAID. And I said, as a therapist? Or, as a counselor? Or, as a social worker? He said, no. None of those positions. And so my first question was, well, how am I going to use my degrees? You know, I think everyone says that. I want to put my degrees to use. How am I going to use my degrees? And so when I kind of weighed the pros and the cons. And fast forward to, I think a couple months later, I talked to my director and I said, you know, Dr. Davis, I may apply for the federal government. And she was surprised because everyone knew, oh, Patrice is never going to work for the federal government. They don't even have a lot of positions in our field. And so when she said, oh, well, we can give you $1,000 promotion, I'm thinking, oh, per month? And she said, no, per year.
Wow.
Like, that's not enough. You know, I had a master's, I had a scholarship, but I also had a little bit of student loans. And so I'm thinking, okay, and I'm very transparent, so I don't mind sharing all of my business. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm making $40,000 with a master's. I have student loans. I still live at home with my parents. I want my own home. I couldn't see myself living in the DMV at $40,000. And so the federal government was starting off at $55,000. So I had to weigh the pros and the cons. And so I applied for a position, and I had no idea what this position was. So it was a contract specialist. And I said, well, what does a contract specialist do? And so I prepped for the interview. And as Dr. Lisa said, I kind of used my skill set as a therapist and as a counselor kind of interchangeably with being a contract specialist. And I wowed them, and I got the position. And so I was a contract specialist. And then in that particular division or series, what we call it, eventually when you have enough certifications and you become a warranted contracting officer for the federal government, which means you sign awards and grants and cooperative agreements on behalf of the federal government. So within 2 years, I already had my level 3, which was the highest certification that you can get. And so I became a contracting officer for the federal government. And so I was a contracting officer for 9 years. And I'm still at USAID, and now I'm a procurement analyst. I received a promotion in July. And at first I said, you know, I still want to do some type of service work, you know, working as a therapist or a counselor. But in hindsight, looking back, my agency, our mission is to end extreme poverty. And I've traveled all over the world, providing foreign assistance to various people, various countries who need aid. And so I said, okay, this is kind of sort of in line of not so much mental health, but kind of in the helping field, which is what, you know, a therapist and an academic counselor is in. And then moving forward to July, I became a procurement analyst in our ombudsman office. And so a lot of the skills and components that we use in our office kind of bleeds back into being a therapist, confidentiality, being non-biased. And I'm like, hey, I finally have certain things that are, you know, were instilled in me in undergrad and in grad, and it transferred over into what I'm doing right now. So the position that I'm in now, I absolutely love. It's not going to be as much travel experience, but I love the fact that I'm still able to use those skills that I developed and those fundamental skills, you know, that I developed at Howard for undergrad and grad in psychology and counseling psychology. So I was really excited about that. I would say advice that I can give, don't limit yourself. In the picture, I had a t-shirt on that says bet on yourself. It's one of my favorite t-shirts. I think that when we look at, oh, you know, I have all these student loans, I have the student loans that I have a degree in business or I have a degree in counseling, I want to stay in that field. You can use counseling or psychology in any arena, in my opinion. I never forget when I first started at AID in 2011, and you know, we had a lot of meetings. We still have tons of meetings. They asked, you know, what was your background? And I told them, they were like, oh, we're going to need her. She was a therapist. We're going to need her. So I say all that to say, you know, it's you can use it at any facet in your life. So I would say, you know, never give up. Don't limit yourself. Always bet on yourself and always be your best advocate. Lastly, I would say what's on the horizon for me. I just received, again, the promotion in July as a procurement analyst. So I want to stay in this role for maybe about 5 to 10 years and continue to support my agency in that position. So hope I wasn't, as Dr. Lisa said, I hope I wasn't long-winded because I am very chatty.
That was awesome. And I really appreciate your transparency, but also don't limit yourself and bet on yourself. I think those are two things that we can all take away from what you stated 100%, because I think that's just really important, right? Like we get these things and then we put ourselves in little boxes, but like we can take a chance. We can, venture outside of things if we don't limit ourselves. Absolutely. All right. Well, who wants to go next?
I guess I can jump in next. Shatanya.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, to speak on my path, of my career, my path takes a very windy road. Back when I was a child, I wanted to be a child psychologist. When I got into psychology, I've always was thinking about, analyzing people, and just that was my wants. And then when I realized I took on a lot of people's issues, like anything someone confided in me, I took it so heavily and it stressed me out so much that I was like, okay, maybe that's not the route for me. So then I was dabbled in wanting to go to school for law, and then I eventually I went to school for business and marketing. And then that transitioned, and I became a stylist, and I started working in the fashion industry. So I started working and to doing production and fashion shows and styling celebrities and that whole thing. So I've been a wardrobe stylist and a fashion editor for magazines for about 14 years. But my journey started because within the fashion and everything, as time went on, I started realizing that I had some traumas from childhood. I had an abusive childhood, and so I dealt with depression, I dealt with mental illness, I dealt with anxieties. But at this time, when I was younger, I didn't realize what it was, but I knew something was wrong, but I could not pinpoint what was going on. But as I got older, I'm working in an industry that's highly critical, dealing with a lot of toxic people, a lot of broken people, and it starts to shine the light on your triggers and your issues and the things that you have going on in your own personal life. So dealing with these people and their complicated situations and realizing that it was taking a much bigger toll on me, I started on a journey where I started to self-help. And I went on a healing mission of, okay, I got to find out what's going on. I started going to therapy and getting back into, started self-analyzing myself. And I started working on that and doing healing and meditation. And I went on a healing journey. I went to Thailand and learned meditation and different types of breathwork meditation and all these different things to help, save myself from myself with my mental illness. And in the process of doing that, I started coaching and mentoring other people that were dealing with the same issues, or just like either friends or other clients that had issues, and just talking to them and getting them through that. So in turn, I started coaching and getting people involved in meditation and started to bring awareness to mental health issues and things of that nature. So that's what made me start doing my podcast, A Pursuit to Happiness, just teaching people, bringing people along the journey of my self-help journey, and as well as bringing them on an awareness and helping them to define the triggers. I think because of the fact that it was always an interest of me, the human mind, it was easier for me to help people, talk them through knowing triggers, knowing signs, realizing certain things that was going on, and helping to coach them and guide them to, their next steps in life when it comes to their mental illness, and just bringing awareness of it. And within the fashion industry, I learned that sometimes, like when you're dealing with these clients, a lot of times you are a therapist. Like you have to really what really pushed me to knowing that I needed to go work in my life's purpose, which was helping to heal people and helping to bring people to another understanding of help, was I realized that the people that I was dressing up to make beautiful, they didn't feel beautiful on the inside. So there was no amount of clothing, no amount of makeup, no amount of hair that I could put them in that would make them happy, because it was already, they needed to be healed from the inside. And it started to weigh down on me, because, you know, if you already have these triggers that I'm not good enough, comparing yourself to other people, and these people have these issues, it really beats down on you. So when I started working on myself, I'm like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. My purpose is, like, I was brought into fashion, but my purpose was to help bring these people to an understanding of clearing up all that, the noise in their head, and bringing them to peace, and getting a hold of what they're going through, and working them and making them beautiful from the inside out. So that's my career journey. And the piece of advice that I would say to people that's trying to figure out if they want to go the counseling route, or to want to veer away from their degrees, the thing is, you have to find what makes you happy. What, at the end of the day, you can go to a job every day and have no peace, no happiness, anything. You got to figure out, don't worry about how much money you invested in your degree or how much time you invested in it. You have to see what makes you happy and what brings you whole. You can't help others if what you're doing doesn't bring you joy. If it doesn't bring you happiness, then there's nothing you can give to these people. So don't look at the outcome. Don't look at how much money you will make or you won't make. Don't look at disappointing people. Just look at the fact of, how does this make me feel? But I feel like the best way to do that is to have hands-on experience on whatever it was that you went to school for. Try to shadow somebody, do internships, do different things in that field. And then also, whatever it is that you wanted to venture off to, get some hands-on experience in that. That's the best way to see, how does this resonate with me? How do I feel at the end of the day? When I finish this project, do I feel good about my day? Do I feel like I, really accomplished this? Like, my thing is happiness, regardless of what. Regardless of, what's on your wall, or at the end of the day, you have to be able to go home, especially if you're counseling people and you're bringing people through therapy. You cannot go into a session depleted and bring somebody else up. You have to go in there feeling good. So definitely, I would say, get that hands-on experience, shadow, and don't worry about the outcome. Just go with your gut feeling and see how it makes you feel, and take a chance, take a risk. It was a big risk for me to go from being a celebrity stylist, traveling all over the world, going here and there, being on yachts, being in all these different amazing places, and then say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to go and just help people and bring them to a happy place. And what's on the horizon for me is basically reaching out to more people to help them get into a place of happiness, help them get into a place of peace. Going further with my podcast, traveling the world, inspiring other people to, get in a positive mindset, dig down into that mental health issues that they into the mental health issues that they may have, or just basically just finding peace with themselves. And that's my journey. My journey is to just help people find their happiness, find their peace, tackle these mental health issues it's Suicide Prevention Month. So I'm working hard on that and trying to get the word out there to help these young children that we're losing losing their lives to being depressed and all of that. So that is my mission. I'm trying to save lives and make people happy.
Absolutely, and that's awesome. And I mean, there's a couple of things that stood out for me. And just one of the things was just like, even though we might run away sometimes from what our mission might be in life, like it always circles back.
Right.
So if we're doing celebrity styling and people are spilling their heart out, right? Like you would probably think that this particular position would be, you know, also coaching and mentoring and supporting mental health, but people gravitate to people who can, you know, naturally have those skills and that process to help them.
That's true. And it's funny because it's like I have clients who, you know, one of my celebrity clients, she would say to her publicist, like, no, I need Shatanya in the room. I need her energy in the room. Like, I need her with me. Like, but it's like, it's an intimate space, and people, they pour their hearts out to you. You see them in their most vulnerable states. I've had clients who have been out of rehab and they're about to come back and relaunch their career, and you're in the fitting room with them, and they're about to go on stage and they are so dark, and you're just like, wow. Like, and you just start talking to them like, so what's going on? And like, while they're waiting to go on stage, like, you're having a session with this person. Like, okay, because we need to get you out of that headspace so you could go on that stage and perform. But it was like, I was tired of seeing my people just shrink. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have to, let's get these people back together. Let's get these people healed.
Thank you for that. And the other thing that really caught me is the idea of a podcast and the ability to reach out through podcasts.
Right.
So I look forward to kind of hearing a little bit more about that for sure.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. So we have one more person left, Dr. White.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm very happy to be here with you guys tonight. I think the best way for me to kind of tell you about my career path is to tell you about some of my business ventures. So the short version is, people have always asked me for advice, even in high school. So for me, it was, what if I actually knew what I was talking about? And that led me to studying psychology at VCU, go Rams. However, I saw the gap in services while working different places. So I've worked in-home counseling, school-based counseling, as well as several psychiatric hospitals throughout Georgia, where I am today. And my thought pattern, or my why for starting private practice, is, how do I prevent people from getting here? So at the psych hospital, after they've tried to commit suicide, after they've overdosed because of drug intoxication, what steps are between getting the clients some support before they need the most highest level of therapy, which we know is intensive inpatient psychiatric hospital. So I started my practice in 2013. Dr. White Therapy Group went from me in a little box of a room to now I have 6 therapists who work under me. I also, very similar to Shatanya, noticed that there is a connection between our mental health and our physical space and how we treat our body. So in January of this year, I actually bought a spa in Grayson, Georgia, called Bodhi Spa. And prior to purchasing the spa, I had already been working with a couple of massage therapists who, after seeing a client or working with clients who had intensive trauma history, and we know it because we work or we're stressing out about school, they have these tension knots in their neck or in their shoulders. And so after bringing all this stuff up to kind of cool the clients down, like I said, I have been working with massage therapists for quite a few years. And I have the spa where clients can do their self-care there in a separate space. But I also noticed another gap. Most of the clients that I work with personally are with what I call our word well. So they have 9-to-5 jobs. Most of them have health insurance. And then they say, hey, I want to use my Blue Cross Blue Shield to see you. And they find out they have a $5,000 deductible.
Wow.
Which means they need to pay my $125 out-of-pocket rate until they reach that $5,000 deductible. And so, again, that gap of people needing help on paper, looking like they have the things that they need to be successful, and then getting hit with an extremely high bill. And so then I started a nonprofit called the Hope Dealer, ATF. And so the goal of the Hope Dealer is to, again, fill that gap. So people who have a ridiculous copay can see an intern or a novice therapist at a sliding scale. Instead of going to the community service board, they have that opportunity to see someone who's highly trained, who's under my supervision and my experience at an extremely discounted rate. And again, to offset that price, having a 501c3 means that any donations I receive can help pay that therapist who's working with the client so that they can have more affordable, more accessible therapists, especially with therapists that looks like them, because we have therapists who are bilingual from other countries.
Right.
We have therapists who specialize in working with the LGBTQI community. So we have a vast array of services. And again, we have merchandise, t-shirts, books, different things, and all of those tax deductible donations help people who have difficulties either paying their extremely high deductible, and then some people don't have health insurance at all.
Right.
Or I've also experienced people who have phenomenal medical insurance, zero mental health benefits.
Wow.
And so it's one of those things that I kind of learned on the fly. Again, taking you down a windy road of private practice after so many different strange but interesting career paths, noticing a gap. Went from solo to group. I have the spa, and then I also have a nonprofit, and I also have been a professor for the past 2.5 years. So I'm a full-time online professor with Grand Canyon University. So it's not just something I like to talk about. I actually like to help empower and train good clinically sound counselors, because from my experience in private practice and even sometimes working at the psych hospitals and doing in-home therapy, I kind of found myself being the cleanup woman for therapy, where people have been out of care for 5 to 10 years, having extreme traumas or very, very difficult levels of anxiety to manage, but they've experienced a therapist who wasn't necessarily trained properly, clinically sound, or just wasn't a good match for them. COVID has kind of put a damper on my love for shoes, because I really don't have anywhere to wear cute shoes to. But in my informed consent, I usually tell clients that therapists are like shoes. Whether I go to Walmart or Saks, I might have to go up or down the size to get the right fit. And therapists are the exact same way.
Exactly.
We don't have a cookie cutter approach. And so our personalities, our therapeutic approaches, they may be different. And a lot of clients don't know that they actually have the power to hire and fire their therapist.
Right.
And that's part of what the Hope Dealer ATL does too. Exactly. So outside of offsetting the cost for what can be very expensive therapy, we also do education around choosing, hiring, and firing a therapist, destigmatizing mental health issues and mental wealth.
Yes.
Because we know, you guys know as clinicians, mentors, that therapy is not just for chronically mental ill.
Exactly.
But a lot of people don't know that. When they hear therapist, they say, "Oh, you're crazy."
Right.
When they hear therapist, they say, "Oh, you must need to get on medicine."
Right.
And so we do a lot of webinars and talks. We go to the Boys and Girls Club when it was safe. Different places we do Zooms to just talk about what anxiety looks like, what depression looks like. We've had a Corona coping session where we just talked about, what is this? I feel these symptoms that I've never felt before.
Right.
So normalizing symptoms of mental health and normalizing what it looks like to get help is also part of the nonprofit that I have. And another random that Dr. Johnson harassed me about sharing with you guys, just to show the diversity that you can have with these counseling skills, is that I also own real estate property.
Yes.
So Dr. Webb mentioned earlier, there are so many transferable skills that being a counselor, a mentor, or a coach can afford you. And so that's kind of my path. Again, different things, different life events, different gaps I saw, said, hey, let me try this, let me see this.
Right.
And so that leads me to your question too. What is one piece of advice of venturing out beyond our degree in counseling? As you guys probably can tell, I have quite a bit of experience with venturing out. One toe in and one toe out. I actually had a hard time coming up with just one piece of advice. One, I would like to say, take advantage of, unfortunately, this pandemic. There are so many amazing schools that I would never normally have time to go to, or the money that are offering so many free trainings, resources, certifications. Cornell, for example, has a free training on business. I do not care if you never, ever want to be in private practice or a consultant, or you don't want to do anything of the business side of counseling. But let me tell you this, and I think Patrice alluded to it earlier, because we go into this counseling field with, I guess, this air of altruism. I'm here to help you, and I love people, and people love me. People take advantage of that.
That's true.
They will give you the lowest offer,
right,
and won't bat an eye. Just like Patrice mentioned,
true.
It wasn't until she said, "Yeah, I'm about to head out," that they miraculously came up with this extra $1,000 a year.
Exactly.
Counselors, if you never plan to go in business with counseling, please learn the business of counseling. Unfortunately, it is a business. So the amount of clients you see has a number to it. And regardless of where you work, they're looking for you to produce, because there is a business side of counseling. And part of that means that you have to be knowledgeable of how to market yourself and how to make sure you're negotiating what's best for you. I love what Shatanya just said, as far as, if you find something that makes you happy, you'll find the money. And this is how I ended up with 5 different careers all rolled into one. Because my whole family said, you'll never make money as a counselor.
Same.
But once I found my love for counseling, it was so easy to flow and ebb in and out these different businesses that I have that are of interest to me. So one, take advantage of this pandemic time. Get you a certification, whether it's in counseling or not. Please look into the business side of counseling, or just learn some basics on business, period. That's my number 1. Number 2, figure out a niche, or start thinking about it. I don't know where you guys are respectively in your programs, but I know one of the worst things I did professionally is that I see everybody. I love everybody. I can help everybody. That's a quick, fast way to get burnt out.
Right.
When you start working with clients, or if you're working with clients now, start thinking about the clients that 50 minutes or an hour breezes by, and the next thing you know, you're saying, I look forward to us seeing each other next week or in 2 weeks. The clients that make you feel tired, or you look at the clock and you're like, shoot, it's only been 5 minutes. Those are clients that are far away from your niche. And when I say niche, a specialty, and it could be a technique, it could be EMDR, it could be that you specialize in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, or it could be your location, that you only see clients virtually, which, is everybody during the pandemic, but something to think about, your hours. Most therapists have banker's hours, so if you only see clients on the weekends, that can make you stand out. Your clientele, specialize in working with military personnel, police officers, you only see men, you only see members of the LGBTQI community, or you only work with kids who have ADHD. Those are examples of niche, how you can specialize. And 1, that's great for marketing, and 2, it's great for preserving your energy, like Shatanya said. We are all people who have different energies, so therapy can be draining. And I have a lot of people who went through the PhD program with me. Not a lot is subjective, but let's say it was a cohort of 12, and maybe 6 of us are actually doing something therapy connected. I've got people that are real estate agents now, lawyers now. So as Patrice mentioned, there are so many different ways to help people. But if you don't figure out your why and your who, it's going to be very draining. So that's my number 2 thing about venturing outside of counseling, is that your degree or degrees is fantastic, but it's a general practitioner's degree. So get some type of specialty. Even one of the specialties you guys saw on the slide about me earlier is I have a certification in anger management. It's a weekend training. If you're going to be a counselor or rehab counselor, you have all the skills to treat people with anger management. But having that certification, that little piece of paper that I can put a comma behind my name, means that different courts in my county reach out to my practice because I have that specific designation. And again, that's the business of counseling. The more credentials, the better, or at least have a credential in something that's interesting to you. And the very, very last piece of advice that I have is network like crazy. It doesn't have to just be people in the counseling field.
Exactly.
Some of you guys who know and love Dr. Johnson, she knows everybody in every field, and that is a big contributor to her success. It's a lawyer that feeds clients to my practice. Medical doctors have become very good friends of mine because they don't want to deal with any of the mental stuff.
Right.
So network, even if it's not just about business, having a balance of people in your life is really important, especially when you do the work that we do, which is from our heart. Mm-hmm. And then my final question, my final answer to the last question you guys had is retirement from therapy is on the horizon for me. So you guys had about 5 different hats that I wear. And so since I own a therapy group and I have a very, very, very good team, it is time for me to stop seeing therapy clients, focus on the business side, which really gives me a lot of energy. And I also do supervision. So I'll get that vicarious joy of people progression through therapy. I'm going to be like Dr. Webb and step away from the one-on-one. So at the end of 2020, I'll be done with seeing clients one-on-one.
Oh, yay.
That's it for me.
Awesome.
That was
and
amazing.
Thank you so much, Dr. White. You'll still have one client, Kaprea, who will...
And Shatanya.
I'm joking.
Shatanya, too.
Right? But, no, I mean, there are so many amazing pieces of information there that it's hard to kind of pull it all together. But, one of the things that I noticed is just the innovation, the ability to be innovative is important. And I think that's an important skill that we all could benefit from, right? Because, you see a gap, what kind of innovation can we do to make sure that we fill this gap? The introduction of complementary alternative therapies, of massage, right? Sometimes we just need the like people just need to hear that is a thing and you should try it, and it makes people willing to try it. So just really thoughtful, and I'm really excited to kind of hear the questions from the audience. Dana, can you hit, yep, there we go, perfect. All right, so please feel free to unmute yourself and just ask the panel questions. And here's some questions also, panel, that I received. So if there's anything on here that stands out to you that you really want to respond to, definitely feel free.
I want to respond. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. The question of, did you have a mentor and how do they help you? Yes. And I don't think I would be where I am today if it weren't for very important people in my life at very important points in my life who took the time to sit down and talk to me and point me in a direction. And so I used to not actively seek out mentors, and now I do, because they've been so instrumental in helping me get to where I am. One of them, I think, was Dr. Quincy Birdsong, who was an associate VP Everett Health Sciences campus. He's now, I think, in Georgia. He left us, unfortunately, but he sat down and had a conversation with me at a point at which I was about to get a promotion, and he said, this is an important point in your career where you have to decide if you're going to specialize in disability work or if you want to look at system change in higher education. And he said, so this is a moment, if you take this promotion, you're going to have to leave behind some of the disability work, and you're going to move in a different direction. So you have to think really hard about whether or not this is how you want to go. And that was a really important thing for me to hear and to set some intention. And then I had 2 professors when I was in seminary who encouraged me to do doctoral work, and I would not have if it hadn't been for them. And so listen to the people that you respect, but seek out people that you respect and that are doing things or are people that you want to emulate in your career. Tips on finding a mentor. I've gotten bolder as I've gotten older, so I just flat say to people, I really respect the work that you do, and I would love to have some of your time to sit down and talk to you about where I am in my career. Because I think if you just wait for the magical person to arrive, you'll be waiting a long time. So I say go after it. Find the people who are doing research that you're interested in, they're doing work that you are interested in, or who are living a life that you are moving toward or striving for. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in your field.
That's true.
One of the questions, well, two of the questions that I was going to answer very quickly is, what did you do when you felt unsure about your career path? So I shared with you guys, I worked psych hospitals in-home. Similar to Patrice, the money was terrible. And I know it's not just about the money, but that does start to affect your mental health when you're not able to take care of things financially. And so when I thought about actually leaving the field, I got better supervision. So I had free supervision at my job, and it was worth it for me to actually go back to my master's program and pay for group supervision. And that really brought a light back into me. And it kind of goes back to your question of how you start finding a mentor. I would look at your professors now, the ones that seem like they are friendly and you have a good rapport with, or you want to build a rapport with them. Going to their virtual office hours, and then connecting with Ms. Brookover, since she's the president of CSI. As a faculty, when I work with CSI, we try to bring people who are in different career paths and may have be interest to the students, and they're usually very, very willing to serve as mentors or at least connect you with someone. So that's my advice on that. And then one thing that surprised me about my career path, I kind of shared with you guys earlier, some people in the helping profession are mean. That was really surprising to me. Like, you're a counselor? Some people are mean. So having good support and a mentor, and if you're doing therapy, good clinical supervision for me was very helpful and helped kind of insulate that shock, that surprise.
I'll jump in there. Dr. White and I actually have the exact same questions. So what did you do when you felt unsure about your career path? I would say my faith is 100% important to me, maybe 1,000,000% important. And so in anything that I do, I pray and meditate a lot. I think Shatonia said she went to Thailand and it was like a meditation retreat. I've been to Thailand, so I've been to Phuket and Bangkok. And so
me too. I said me too. That's exactly where I went. Amazing. Phuket and Bangkok.
Life-changing, right?
Yes, I stayed for a month. It was amazing.
I only stayed for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's absolutely amazing. I mean, so I always pray and try to meditate. And I think somebody mentioned, I can't remember who, they're very analytical. I analyze everything. Mm-hmm. I'm an overthinker. And so my whole thing is, okay, let me pray to God, who's the higher being and the controller over my life, and let me allow him to do his job. Because to me, I feel like, and I think I put on one of the slides that said my favorite scripture is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And so I feel like if we don't trust God, in my opinion, that tells God that we don't think he's good at his job. And I never want him to think that I don't think he's good at his job. So I would say whenever I felt unsure about my career path, I always pray and meditate, and the answers just kind of fall right in my lap, literally. So the other question, what has surprised you most about my career path? I actually really like it. I had no idea. As Dr. White mentioned, people in the helping field are mean. I just thought people in the federal government were lazy. Like, oh, they're the good government workers and they don't do anything. That's not always the case. I don't know if it's like that at other agencies, but I can only speak for USAID. I actually really, really enjoy what I do. Sometimes it could be a bit, stressful or chaotic, but I really love what I do, and I love our mission. I love that we're helping people. And it really surprised me that psychology played a role into what I'm doing right now. And so it's kind of interesting and also like, oh, okay, this does kind of play a factor. This does kind of play a role into what I'm doing now. So,
can I say too that I think it's okay for us to expect to be well compensated for the work that we do, and so it is okay for it to be about the money, and it's okay for you to make career decisions based on financial stability, and what is going to support you and a family if you have a family. But I think those things are okay, because I think that one of the things that surprised me as I started moving along a career path was how hard I had to negotiate to get salary that was equal to male colleagues who were in the same positions. And so that was, and still continues to be, shocking to me that in these days we still have to make the case. And so I think particularly women try to minimize that fact. We want to do good, and you can do good and be well compensated for it. So I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. So
I definitely agree.
Thanks for that, Dr. Webb. I honestly struggled with that when I first started off in 2011, because everyone was like, oh, well, you have all these degrees. Why did you leave that specialty? As Dr. White was saying about your niche, that was my niche, helping students and, mentoring students. So why did you leave that? Oh, it was just for the money. So thank you for saying that. That's going to be my response now.
Yeah. I think we should expect to get well compensated. We put in a lot of work.
I'm going to jump in as well. There was a question about what advice do I give someone interested in the same career as me? The advice I would give someone in the same career as me is definitely, like I was saying, shadow someone. And like how Dr. White mentioned mentoring and finding a mentor, definitely do some research. Go online, go on Instagram and find other stylists or whatever it is, or whoever, like whatever the person that, whatever the career choice. I don't know if it's styling that you would be interested in, but if it's styling, I would say find a stylist that you respect and that you love, and like you love their style and the type of clients that they have, and reach out to them, because I had other aspiring stylists reach out to me all the time. So I always had interns, I always mentored, I always let them come shadow me. I say that because styling is one of those jobs that seems very glamorous. Once the magazine cover is out there, once the music video is done, once the film is done, once everything is done, it looks beautiful. But it's a lot of physical hard work. Okay, but it's a lot of physically hard work. It's a lot of running around and carrying bags. There's a lot of grunt work behind it. It's a lot of networking, like Dr. White also said about the networking. You have to talk to everybody. I always say that I am a introvert living a fraud life of an extrovert. It's so funny that I'm even in this field of talking to people and counseling and mentoring, because I am so scared. I hate talking, and I'm like, so that's one of my triggers that I'm fighting through my own self. But like, get out there and network, talk to people and shadow people, and just really like get out there and see if it's something that you like. A lot of times I've had interns that worked with me, and by day 2 they were like, I don't like this. Like, this is too much. We've been running around New York all day, dragging bags around. I thought I was just going to see celebrities and like, that was it. No, you're going to be taping shoes and sweeping up and doing all of this. So like, really find someone who you can shadow and see if you like it, and see what, and if you like it and you love it, go for it. At the end of the day, we go through so many different things in life as we evolve. Different things that we see ourselves in different stages that we want to become. So it's okay to change and go to different places and try different careers. It's okay. Like, this is your life and you need to enjoy it. Try different things. See what really sticks out for you. But the best advice I would say is reach out to someone and shadow and do what they do. And, create little shoots and stuff like that, and just do a lot of research and see how it works for you.
I think that's actually really good advice. The reason why how I determined that I wasn't meant to be a medical doctor is from shadowing, actually. The first time when someone came in the emergency room and they had blood dripping from their head, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I was like, this is not for me. This is absolutely not for me. And they're like, you're so good at science. You're so good at math. Like, you're the perfect person we want in this field. Like, you have the science down. I had the science down, but I could not see blood. I could not have stinky smells. I couldn't do any of it. So I could not be a doctor. Like, I would not have made it through the process. But I only found that out, and I did a year, right? But I only found that out through shadowing. That was how I found out that I was scared of blood. Right. Other than that, I had no clue. I would have gotten to my last year, applied for medical school, and I had to drop out because I could not do blood. So please don't take that for granted. The idea of shadowing and have an opportunity to see what it's really like.
Exactly.
The mental health question is a really good one. I had to learn how to say no, for one thing.
Other questions or thoughts?
Because I think we're told to grab every opportunity, keep doing, and so learning how to be selective and say no, and to not overfunction.
Because there's a discussion in the chat around tips on negotiating wage. Does anyone have any helpful tips on negotiating wage or any lessons that have been helpful?
Hey, Dr. Johnson. I think what Dr. White actually put is
like Magellan, that right now they're looking for counselors once you're licensed to go to Djibouti for 6 months, and that's tax-free money. So don't feel pigeonholed to being at a desk listening to people cry all day, every day. It's amazing if you found that niche or your song. But even as Patrice mentioned, as you grow and change, that might change as well. Dr. Johnson mentioned the medical field. I wanted to either be a pediatrician or elementary school teacher, and as you guys see, I am neither. So we grow and we change, and we kind of follow what our heart calls. Because I found, for me, working as a therapist with children, I take that home. I don't sleep well when I've worked with children who are in pain or hurting. And because I have a license to protect, I can't go smack some child's parent or their caretaker. That's just, it's unethical. And I want to keep my license and my livelihood. So you have to weigh all the pros and cons, and also prepare for your interviews. Don't just wing it. Call one of your colleagues, email Dr. Johnson, but be prepared. That's going to help you negotiate better.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I also like the discussion around other ways to help people too, like Shatanya mentioned in the podcast, and Adrienne, you mentioned your 503c, your nonprofit. Like, I think that's really interesting. And Patrice talking about working at the government, but the mission of her agency, right, it's to essentially help, right? And Lisa, the same thing. So I really think that's interesting, because sometimes we think, okay, I want to help people, I must be a counselor. But there's so many different ways. So many different avenues. Like, what that looks like is what your imagination allows.
Right, exactly.
So I really think that's interesting too, especially nowadays when everyone's using technology as well.
Right.
Any lasting thoughts or questions? The panelists want to thank them, but also not take up too much of their time. As you can see, they're all busy people.
Just one more question, Dr. J, in the chat.
Okay.
Do we have time for one more? Erin asked, any tips on making CVs, resumes flexible for various kinds of positions, and how to make it clear in those documents that your skills are transferable?
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't try to make a, generic resume, because it's 2020. From my experience from the career counseling side, is what employers do is they don't look at your resume anymore. They run it through a program similar to like Turnitin or whatever Blackboard is using now to make sure no one's plagiarizing. And they're looking for certain words based on the actual job description. So my suggestion is look at the job description and try to embed that into your resume or CV and make it very specific for each resume. That was, again, one of the oops that I made here in Georgia applying for jobs I actually had the training and skills for, but I didn't have the right words. So the automated system was booting me out.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't even know they had that type of system. That's so interesting. Good advice.
And I know, Patrice, that's probably similar to the government too. Like I know that they use a system like that as well, where they're doing like a keyword search on your CV. So I guess, Aaron, one of the things would be to make several versions of your resume and CV.
Yeah, absolutely. The government, they literally look at, okay, if you're applying for a project manager and it says, have you managed projects, and you don't have any of that in your resume, you're probably not going to go on to the next level of being qualified for the position. So yeah, definitely those keywords in your resume and CVs.
Good to know.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank the panel for joining us today. This was wonderful. I feel like every time I have something like this, I learn something new myself. So thank you all for just coming and just sharing with us your experiences and your trajectory, because I think it's helpful and also provides the flexibility for us, growing in our identities as counselors. Some of us are on the call who are in PhD programs in counselor education. There's some master students on the call as well. It's important to just be thinking about, like Shatanya said, what makes you happy, right? Adrienne is being innovative around what this would look like, what her career and what her path looks like. Patrice took a different path working for the government, but still it comes back and it centers on helping and that ability to be in a position where you can help. And Lisa as well, right? Being a certified rehabilitation counselor, I'm sure she probably thought, this is where I'm at, right? But then she figured out another way to broaden that scope to support even more people. Right. So be thinking about your careers. Take chances. I think one of the things we kept going back to is take chances. Don't limit yourself. Bet on yourself. Actually get mentors. Shadow people. Like, all of these are good nuggets of advice, and I hope that you all take on this advice and try out some things, right? Try on some new shoes, as Dr. White would say. All right. Well, thank you again, and I'll do a clap. I wish I had the audio where you could do a clap. Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Absolutely.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. So nice meeting all of you guys.
Likewise. Good evening, everyone. Be safe.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.